Mbula mbula, Bolivinak everybody. For those of you who are joining in for our Wednesday webinar. So I'm connecting in from the California State University here in Los Angeles. And it's Wednesday here on this part of the world. And I know it's Thursday for those of you who are on the other side of the dateline. So, Bolivinaka to you all. And thank you so much for your lovely support in attending our weekly Wednesday webinar, which we have had the privilege of traveling all around the Pacific for free. Yeah, we didn't pay your airfare to fly anywhere, but you're just joining in from the comfort of your home, from your office. And we had our first speaker, Elinda Naputi, who's also joining us today. Thank you, Elinda, for your support. And today we are traveling over to American Samoa. So last week we had the privilege of visiting the two beautiful islands under the Federated States of Micronesia. We were visiting the islands of Pohnpei and also Calstate. So it was really wonderful that we were able to connect with our two sisters joining in from Pohnpei and from Chuk, these two wonderful islands that many of us often just hear about. But the purpose of these webinars is for us to actually see a person from that country. And all of my students here in Calstate, LA, and those of you who are listening in can also have the wonderful privilege of knowing someone, yeah, from those countries that most of us just hear about. And we've been traveling all across Micronesia, all across to Saipan, to Guam, to Palau, to the Republic of Marshall Islands, and then last week to Pohnpei and to Chuk. So today we're starting the tour across to American Samoa, and we have our speaker, Erika, who is joining in from the beautiful Pango Pango today. So for those of you who've been following my Talanoa program, you always know that I always play a song in the beginning of my talk story. And so I found a beautiful song from America Samoa that connects the US and the beautiful islands of Samoa, and we will listen to it now. And that will be the starting of our program, and give time for the others who are just joining in to also have time for them to log in, jump in via Zoom, or you can just listen in on my Talanoa with Dr. T Facebook page. Talo Falava ni Sambulu Vinaka. And this song is titled Tupulanga Sam.
Awane ino se tasi ilo tau lea lea.
Aie fai oe mawha oao, ie ufatu atua.
Ile upo,
Male a miu,
male alofa,
Male loto,
Male whaatuatua.
male le ngao ya.
Ua matango fiele aso mua ia mua o. Sauni maila o pati male po tupulanga Samoa mai e whaafia fia. E whaava e Samoa i le atua. O loi whaasi no mangalena. Samoa e no ua tu upele. E pele pea i lo uanganga. Tupulanga Samoa mai e whaafia fia mole au mai moa. Manene lau siva mawhali o winga tau safia. Se mai ala ia tene Samoa tau lele ai ni ane loa. saloloa.
Mama tine Samoa ia e mana tua malu e mafita o ainga ai mise o matua aua o soulu mana I manuia e mawai o ele fia ia tu mawile tu mafina wi melele e silile amo itamua tuna Samoa o mai ai fia mole au mai moa amane ene e lausi papa faali o winga tau sa afia se e mayela ia teine sa motau lele ai ulia ne loa ule Samoa o te mita I le basa loloa tupulanga Samoa mai ai fia mole au mai moa amane de lausi mafaali o winga tau safia se mayala ia teine sa bota ulele ai ulia ne loa ule Samoa o te mita I le vasa loloa ule Samoa o te mita I le vasa loloa.
Beautiful. Wow. What a wonderful song that has launched us now to this beautiful Talanoa session that I've scheduled for today. It's the 16th of April here in the United States, and it's 14 minutes past 5 for the time here in California. And we have our guests right here. We've got Erika Radewagen, who is logging in from Pango Pango, Talofalava, Erika. You've just to unmute my sister.
Oh goodness.
That's okay.
Talofa. Actually I just saw that video for the first time last week. So that's really interesting that was the one that you chose.
Yeah, I was looking through, a couple of songs, and nearly for all the guests that I've hosted, for some reason there's a few in front of me, and then there's always one that I kind of like gravitate towards, and I chose that one for you, Erika. Mm.
Thank you.
What's the weather like in Pangu Pangu today?
So it's actually pretty nice. Today we have a holiday. It's the 125th anniversary of American Samoa becoming American Samoa. Well, that's actually tomorrow. So tomorrow is Flag Day. Today we have the Fautasi races. So I'm not sure if people are familiar with that, but there are these big long boats that are rowed by like 40 guys, and we have 11 villages that participated. It's all over Facebook. The final is happening right now, but I'm talking to all of you lovely people. I turned off my phone. I'm not watching the race. So yeah, if anybody's interested in that, that's all over that'll be all over the Samoan Facebook pages at the moment, and probably for the next couple of days, depending on how the race goes down. So it's nice and it's warm. We're coming out of summer now. So the sun's setting a little bit earlier, but since we're only 14 degrees off of the equator, we actually don't have much more than an hour that our sun, the changes for our sunrise and sunset during summer and winter.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Erika. And I think we have quite a number of guests who are joining in from other parts of the Pacific. So it's good to know the weather in your part of the world. And I know the seasons are changing, even for us here we're having more sun now, even though it's still kind of we're halfway into spring, but we can feel some hot, climate coming up. We know it's around the corner. But also a few days ago, we were rattled by a 5 point something earthquake here in San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was somewhere close to San Diego, but we felt it here where we are in LA. We had a little bit of a shaking of the, where our place, maybe for about 5 seconds, and then it stopped again. Um, but again, we just hope for the best, as we know there's a lot of geological things happening around the world, and we just have to be attuned, yeah, to what is happening around us. So again, thank you so much, Erica. So to start off our Talanoa today, if you can just share with us a little bit about you, your Ainga, your family upbringing, where you were raised, and tell us a little bit about your mom's side, if you can, and your dad as well. Thank you, Erica.
Um, Talofa, Wa'uo Meatiti, Erika Radewagen. I have a title now. So my title is Meatiti. I am a talking chief to the Uifatali title, who is the head of my clan from the village of Pongo Pongo. And that also happens to be my mother, who also happens to be the congresswoman for American Samoa. We do a lot of multitasking down here. I actually grew up in Washington, D.C. My parents have both been in politics my entire life. My father actually does quite a bit of work also with the governments in Micronesia as well. So I know people know him from that. My dad's originally from Chicago, of German and Norwegian heritage. My mother is Samoan and Irish from my paternal grandfather, and Hawaiian and Scottish on my maternal grandmother's side. I originally got interested in archaeology. I was originally interested in dinosaurs, so let's just start there. I was interested in dinosaurs, and in 6th grade, I took this world civilizations class, and that's what we started learning about other cultures. And by the 10th grade, I was wondering, what about Pacific cultures? Because none of what I was learning had anything to do with Pacific cultures. So I decided to start looking into specifically Hawaiian and Samoan culture. Like, this is my family. This is my heritage. Like, where am I going to learn about this? Thankfully, growing up in DC, I had amazing access to museums and the Smithsonian, but it's a little different when you're looking at a Talanoa in a glass case versus, somebody actually using it and making ava. By the time I got to college, I was like, yeah, I want to go into archaeology. This is what I want to do. And we get to the chapter on Pacific Islands, and my teacher skips it. He worked in the Near East. So he's like, well, I can't really teach this because, I work in the Near East. And I was like, okay. So continued on, went to grad school, only looked at grad schools that had an emphasis in Pacific Islands archaeology, and ended up with Dr. Patrick Kirch at University of California, Berkeley. He's now at UH again. Or back, he's back in Hawaii, and I think he's at UH Manoa now. So that's how I kind of got into it. I came down to American Samoa. I had been back and forth as a kid. Hawaii is easier to get to, so I went to Hawaii more than I came to American Samoa. But for my dissertation, I went into the PhD program, and I was like, oh, I want to do my stuff on American Samoa. I'd been working in Hawaii on Maui, and felt like, well, there are a lot more Hawaiian archaeologists. I don't know. We really don't know anything about American Samoa. I know a handful of people, and I got down here and started working, and I then didn't leave. I got down here, and it turned out that there is a real need for an actual archaeologist on island. There are about half a dozen of us, but everybody else is a government employee. So the people in HPO who do the reviews of my work, basically it was having archaeologists from the Hawaii firms come down and do the work here. We're not as well organized down here, so there would be times where archaeologists would come and sit in the hotel until the project actually started. That all cost money. But every time I came down to do research, the construction companies were like, hey, can you go survey this quarry for us? We got this, we got that. And so I passed into candidacy and said, okay, I'm going to move to American Samoa. It's cheaper there than living in California. Not anymore, but at the time it was. And kept working. And then I didn't finish my dissertation, which happens to a lot of us, but I just started really working full-time in cultural resource management. So I'm the only one who does the archaeology. National Parks has their own archaeologist. The utilities company has their own archaeology division. I do everything else that's federally funded, construction-wise on this island. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Part of the reason for not finishing my PhD, other than not writing the dissertation, is that I kind of saw myself, I realized that applying my skills and being an applied archaeologist made more sense for me than continuing along an academic train. The other thing being that if all I needed was a master's for the to meet the Secretary of Interior guidelines, and getting a PhD would price me out if I had gotten the additional degree. So here I am. And yes, now I've been doing this since 2002. So what is that, 23 years now? So I did at one point waiver on my archaeology. It's been difficult. In the beginning it was more difficult because people didn't quite understand what the heck I was doing. And just really just trying to educate everyone and make everyone aware, like, I'm not trying to stop your project. Here's the thing. And all of us who work here have really pushed this, which is we just want to document what's there. We know it's a small island. We know we are continuing living in, this circumscribed environment. There are houses on top of houses. We just want to know what's going on with the house below before we put the new house on top. So, I did waiver a little bit and took a year where I handled a swimming grant for the local swimming association. They had gotten a grant from the Administration for Native Americans, and it was about teaching locals how to swim, but also teaching locals how to be lifeguards and water safety instructors. So it was a whole program. So I did that for a year, and then the grant ended, and then all of my lifeguards who were all certified moved up to Hawaii because there's pools up there and they could get jobs. And so, I mean, it did what it was supposed to do. Unfortunately, we couldn't build the program locally. And then I ended up continuing doing the job for free for the past, that was 2006, 2007 when I got involved, and I'm still the president of the American Samoa Swimming Association. So I'm still doing that as well and sending swimmers to the Olympics, since American Samoa is its own Olympic country.
That is amazing.
And then on the side, I paddle. That's the sport that's the one I competed. Sorry, none of that actually is as much about archaeology and anthropology and how I got into it. I'd say probably 2007 or 2008 was when I went to the museum.
Yeah.
Museum's been here since 1973. But 2008, they had just re-upped their board and they were looking for someone to come into the museum to help. So I went by, but then there was some drama between a couple of groups, and so that never turned into anything. So several years later, another group created the Friends of the Museum and really hammered at the government, hey, we need to do something about this museum that was set up. It was set up in 1970. It opened its doors in 1973. had over 1,000 objects in it, and it was made for the community. It's a community-based museum. Everything came from the community. And then there were just some issues where they kind of collapsed it under another organization that wasn't really met. Museums are a very special institution, and they're not, you can't just kind of fold them in as a subdivision because they've got so many working parts. But they tried that and it didn't work. So for the past 6 years, I've been volunteering as the curator at the museum and trying to get things sorted out and set up. And unfortunately, I feel like we still have not gotten anywhere since we were in 2008, but there's a new building, so there are some, we're making a little bit of progress. And most of it's from having issues with the government. And so in response to a couple of things that happened last year, I decided to start my own nonprofit, which is called the American Samoa Cultural Heritage Collective. And that was basically, I have all of these things. I've met all these wonderful people and made all these contacts through, I was part of the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islands Museum Institute at the East West Center. And I'm currently in this UH Department of State funded Southeast Asian Pacific Museum Professionals Exchange Program. And so I'm meeting all these people and learning about all of their institutions as well. And I just felt like there's got to be a way that all of this knowledge, I can still use it and do something, and that it's not just limited to what I can do with the museum that has drama, for lack of a better term at the moment. So I came up with this nonprofit, and the idea is really trying to find ways, innovative ways to connect communities and their collections, whether their collections are at home, whether it's a school collection, or even how do they access the museum, how do they access collections there as well, and really starting to look at more sustainable ways of bringing museum practice out. One of our key issues that we have in the islands is we're in the tropics, and it is hard to keep a building running. It's hard to keep the air conditioning running. So looking at more sustainable practices, trying to put exhibits into more public places. So we have the airport is getting a big renovation. So, and I know all the construction people from doing all this CRM for all these years. So like, hey, when you talk to the architect, build in some spaces so we can get some things in there so that we can teach people when they're coming in and out of the, out of the airport. And one of the things with my mother being a high chief is that we have a lot of fine maps. And so the way they're stored currently does not sit well with me. I mean, it's the way people do it, but it does not sit well with me in terms of what I've learned through all my museum classes. I want to go through and I want to roll them all onto PVC and hang them up and tag them with a picture so that we know what they look like each time and that sort of thing. So I don't know how she's going to feel about that, but since I have this title, that's kind of my role, is to be the caretaker of all of those things for her social events with the village. So
That is amazing. And you mentioned 23 years, of working in this field. That's a long time. And, we take our hat off, for you there, Erica, for, your dedication for those 23 years. And so you mentioned, not only the work you do in archaeology, but you also do the swimming, for the community, and the paddling, and lots of other things that that you do. And I'm sure all of that gives you the joy of working with the community. Is that something that drives you every day to enjoy what you do, Erica, as an archaeologist? Do they contribute to it?
yeah, I think it does. I mean, part of it's like we live on this island, and you have kids who don't know how to swim. And it's just like, where else are you gonna, you can go up the mountain or in the ocean, and like you don't really have those options. And if we're not, there's no reason for kids here not to have that opportunity, whether their family chooses, to put them in swim lessons or not. That's, up to them. I mean, the thing with this Fautasi race, sorry, I'm going to digress on this, but the thing with the Fautasi race is every year, all I'm hoping for is that no one's going to drown. We have had these big boats that are not made for the ocean break in half. They've got 40 guys in there. Nobody does any swim checks on anybody ahead of time. We've seen people end up in the ocean. It's luckily they are able to save everyone, but we had 11 boats on the water. And if that's 40 guys per boat, we're talking a lot of people who could potentially get taken out by one or two waves. And if everyone ends up in the water, there's no way we have enough life jackets for everybody to, So it's one of the things is I just feel like kids need to have that knowledge and that familiarity with the water early on, and not wait until they're, an adult. I mean, if they are an adult, we're happy to help them too, but
to start early, yeah?
Also,
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And one of the programs we've been working with is the maritime industry really wants to have local people in the maritime industry. But if you don't have familiarity with the water early on, you're now teaching kids about fishing and going on boats and doing this stuff like in their later years of high school and junior year, senior year. This is when they're being introduced to that. They're not thinking about the work opportunity at that point. They're just thinking about, am I going to make it back to shore? And so we started this whole program to start trying to getting it into the schools at earlier ages. We now have a swimming pool, so learn in the swimming pool, and then then we take you out on the reef so that you can like snorkel and learn about the ocean, because even people who are amazing swimmers, you put them in the ocean and they freak out, because things live in the ocean and the ocean is moving around, unlike a swimming pool.
Yeah, absolutely. And just with you sharing your story thus far, reminds me about our heritage. With our heritage, you're dealing with maritime heritage because we are surrounded by the ocean, and I really admire your dedication, to teach our young ones the art of swimming, and also at the same time your work in archaeology, dealing with the terrestrial, heritage that is on land. So a combination of both, is really admirable. So thank you so much, Erica, for sharing that. Even though you mentioned that your education was all here, in Turtle Island, in the mainland, but I'm sure, your contribution to American Samoa is acknowledged, and also the vision that you have for the new museum. That is so exciting. How the people there now will be taking the idea of that extension of the museum to go to the airport? I love that idea.
I haven't actually rolled it out yet, because one of my projects at the airport right now is we're going to be digging up the parking lot. So we're not quite at that point yet on working on the interior and that kind of thing. But I'm just talking to the engineers at the airport, like, hey, keep this in mind. So it's going to be, I think, another couple of years before they're at that point where they start, But it's one of those things, like, we do so much in reaction versus being proactive or planning in advance. And it's one of those things that I'm like, okay, if I can get this on your mind early on, we're not going to have to be cutting a hole in the drywall to try to put in an exhibit space later on. Let's, if you can design with that in mind, we can, hopefully make that happen.
So true. Wow. Because I love going to airports. I remember the two airport, maybe three, maybe the first two, the Changi Airport in Singapore, and I remember the museum in Dubai. Sorry, the airport in Dubai. Going between the gates, it was like you're going through couple of museums, as you're traveling from one gate to another. And when I saw that, I was just so happy to see that, this is the opportunity for me to see the pictures and the history of Dubai instead of me getting out of the airport because I was actually in transit. So I'm sure that's something that a lot of airports are, and the museum that are collaborating together. And I also remember somewhere in Europe, in which they actually promoted the museum on the carousel. When you're waiting for your suitcase to come from the airport, from the aeroplane, they actually do advertisement on the carousel. So we were all standing there and look, oh, this is exhibition that is taking place. And to me, as a museum person, I was so happy to see that. So do you think it will eventuate? What do you think for your plan for American Samoa for some displays at the airport?
I think so. I mean, even if it turns out that they don't dedicate actual space to it, we've had exhibits that our National Marine Sanctuary has put in place before. So that was through funding from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Sorry, I start using the Fed acronyms, and
Acronyms?
so if you don't know what it is, let me know, and I'll sure to. Sometimes I know what they do. I don't always know what the actual name of the agency is. But they were doing a lot. I mean, especially with the climate change funding in the past several years, more on the coral reefs and that sort of thing. So we do get you know there are displays in public places like that. Like, so in the old airport, in the current airport, we've had, but it's kind of like, here's a case over here and a couple of pop-up banners, which, works. It gets the word out. And, even LAX going through the international terminal there, they've got one very similar for endangered species. So yeah, I know. I take pictures of all. I think people think I'm really weird because we're going through the airport and I'm like, oh, look at this. And I'm taking pictures of like, oh, they've got old, like I just went from the international terminal to Terminal 7, which I never walked before. And then they had this whole hallway full of like old flight attendant uniforms from like the 60s and 70s. Somebody had done a display. So I sat there, took all my photos on my way. But it's more about using spaces and looking at those spaces. Right now, one of the things is we have a new governor and a new lieutenant governor, and their offices need things. I mean, but the museum needs to be organized in a way that you can actually get things out on display, because the interesting thing about our museum is that we know who most of the artists and artisans are who created the things that are in there. Like, or, we've had people come in and say, oh, that's the Ba'alo. My grandfather built that canoe in Manua and donated it to the museum. So we have the community is really connected to the collections. So being able to get that story out as well is like, oh, here is this basket. And it was woven by so and so's family can come and see it and be like, oh, that's on display at the lieutenant governor's office. So the bad story was that one year we did they decided, this was before I was there, they decided to decorate the VIP lounge at the airport with a bunch of very nice things from the museum, and the list was made. Rex, who was there at the time, took care of that, but the display was in for a really long time. Rex passed away, and then like 3 years ago they pulled during COVID, they did the initial started pulling things down at the museum at the airport. And so we were like, well, where is everything that was in the VIP lounge? So we were able, Reggie, luckily, and you can ask her about this in her talk, but she had done she'd worked with Rex on doing that. So she had a record. She had photographs of every single thing. And over the past 3 years, we've been trying to collect things back. I think she's gotten about 11 of the items back. The list is a little longer than that, but and that's the kind of thing you have to take into account, is that we can have all these good ideas about public spaces and everything, but does everyone have the same concepts, or the same attitude towards what
Mm.
that means. And, so we'll make sure that
Wow.
doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. Lessons to learn. And again, you just highlighted the important work of documenting, yeah, documenting everything through photography. And I'm sure I'll ask Reggie when we talk next week. And for those of you who are listening in, Erica has a museum background as well as archaeology. Maybe some of you may not be familiar with what an archaeologist do. Maybe that'll be the next question I will ask Erica, because one of the question I ask is, what does your day or typical day look like as an archaeologist? So for those of you in a very simple term, archaeologists are scientists of those who excavate or they dig the ground to look for historical information about our past. So maybe I should pass it over to Erica. That's the most simplest definition I could make from your role as an archaeologist. What does a typical day look like for you, Erica, when you go about your day? I know it's multifaceted right now with all the different hats that you wear, but wearing your hat as an archaeologist for the day, what does it look like to someone that is watching you while you work around the beautiful island in American Samoa?
So there are various types of field work that I would do. My most recent project was in the village of Aua, and it was the second phase of it was monitoring. So the Navy put in a fuel tank farm, petroleum tank farm, into this village back in like 1940. And so when it was time to close up shop, they pumped it out mostly, except they left about 12 inches in the bottom of each one, collapsed them, threw dirt on it, and left. So Army Corps of Engineer came down to do the cleanup for that because it's a historic site, and we didn't know what kind of prehistoric deposits that might be in place. I was hired to monitor that. So I get up at 5:30 in the morning, drive to the other side of the island, and then I watch them dig, which is kind of nice because I'm not doing the digging, but and then document. And so I'm taking photos and measuring how far down we're finding the remnants of the tank, what types of remnants are we finding, are there actual pipes associated, is it just the tank itself? They also had to dig up the dirt underneath it to do bioremediation. So they dug all this dirt out and shipped it over to a site where they ran it through a big oven, baked everything out of it, and then refilled the site just to get rid of the petroleum waste. So I was just watching to make sure that we weren't getting into anything else and making sure to document if anything else came out. I didn't find any prehistoric finds on that. And I think the reason why is that area, if you go back and look at maps and modeling from the paleo environmental people, the area was mostly swampy. So what I saw was a lot of fill, then the specific fill layers for the construction of the tanks, and then the tank, and then what they put on top of the tank. So it ended up being very basic. So the majority of that project was just historic site documentation as they were pulling the pieces out. So it's a lot of watching and note taking, and then report writing to report everything that I'm documenting, because there are several other people who are documenting the amount of petroleum in the dirt and checking on other things. They had I was just a subcontractor to an engineering firm who was handling the whole thing, and I just had the one job, which was to look for people stuff and construction stuff during that.
And the people stuff in a typical site would include pottery, maybe, or shells or bones.
In a pre-European contact site, so before glass and metal and now plastic, mostly stones, tools made out of stone or made out of shell, bone, not necessarily human bone, it could be animal bone, fish bone, pig bone, any what we call faunal remains, so anything that people might have been eating or animals that they were using for making some kind of product. Um, uh, Areas of charcoal that show people cooking or lighting their way. And a lot of what we find, because it's a very organic, it's because the tropics, there's not really good preservation on organics, stone architecture. And the amazing thing about American Samoa is the way people were making houses traditionally 3,000 years ago is still the same way people will make their faleumu and faleo'os in the backyard. So I've been on projects where I'm looking at this Fale foundation, the guy's like, oh yeah, but my grandpa built that in 1976. And so it's really important that you have families who are connected to their land. We are very lucky that the families on this island have very deep histories on their family land. So different to other places, and the way they do their archaeology and working with the community. Here, if we find human remains, we talk to the landowner. The landowner has final say over how the remains are to be handled. And many times they just say, oh, let's rebury them over here. A few times we've had, I don't know who that is, please take them away from my place. So that happens on occasion. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's my great grandmother, and somehow she ended up under the driveway. I'm still not sure about how that story ended up that way, but the family knew who the grave belonged to. So that was very handy. My family, we have our genealogy written down back 8 generations in the village of Palo Palo, and those who married in. So, and we know where our family land is and who is buried there, and it helps a lot. I mean, it's people's connection back to their land and back to their community. And so that's very, very helpful.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much. And it's wonderful to hear that the locals do know their history. And also, you mentioned about, oh yeah, 1976, my grandpa built that. That just shows their memories are still, very, very strong, and they still able to pass on to you, what has happened back then. Is that quite common around Tutuila? And for the other islands in American Samoa, that the families still have a lot of those oral history that are still remembered?
Yes, very, very strong in oral history. We have specific chiefs, high talking chiefs, their orders, and their job is to keep the falupenga, the genealogies, and be able to recite them as needed for family and cultural events as well. And people still go to school for Samoan, like chiefly Samoan, and are studying regularly. A lot of the higher level chiefs are studying regularly the culture, and we have the church has been very strong in trying to preserve Samoan. So a lot of it comes out of, especially with their help, it's the written Samoan has come up. But we have a Samoan Language Commission. So we have several cultural heritage organizations. The museum's one of them. Historic Preservation Office, which handles sites and who I, turn reports into. But we also have specifically a Samoan Language Commission. And their job is to kind of keep all of that standardized and make sure that, the curriculum for Samoan within American Samoa matches, and everybody's kind of learning the same thing, and all of that, and to continue promoting the preservation of the language. We also have a very strong Samoan Studies department. I think they're the Samoan Language Institute now at our community college. And so a lot of times, if we have projects, particularly with the Historic Preservation Office, we will contact them and they will go out, the students will go out and they will collect the oral histories. So they will do the interviews with the families, and particularly in getting, stories about places, because that's what the Historic Preservation Office focuses on. But it's also the place, like if I needed, so for example, I wanted to do the Samoan for my placard for our exhibit that we did for our museum institute with at the East West Center. I went to one of the guys there to make sure, and he gave me like 3 versions, but to make sure that what was written is not the broken Samoan that I know, but that it would be the proper Samoan for someone to read and understand what the object was and what was on display. And so we have, for the museum board, the upcoming museum board, one of the new members is the former chair of the Samoan Language Commission. So that's going to really help in starting to move the museum towards being more bilingual.
That's beautiful. Wow. And I've seen some museum, particularly in the museums in New Zealand, where bilingualism is really, pushed. Even in museums now we have bilingual labels, so you can read the Te Reo and then also the English as well. So it's really wonderful to hear that that's something American Samoa is working towards. Yeah, so thank you for that. And language is very important. And also in terms of the challenges that you face as an archaeologist. I know, and most of us, wherever we work, there's always the good side, and we also have some challenges. Are there anyone in particular that you would like to highlight? There is a challenge that you're facing in Samoa, and what are some ways that you overcome some of those challenges, Erica?
Still trying to figure out how to overcome the challenges. As I've alluded to, not very subtly about the issue with the museum. It comes down really to a difference of opinion in how things need to be run and what the government expects out of a museum, or what an arts council expects out of a museum versus what museum people think the museum should be. So we're still having the same issues, so I haven't figured out how to work that out. I did have a meeting one day with a higher level government official, and he said, "Oh, so you test soil for a living." So that meeting kind of went wrong really quickly, but what I needed to take from that was he didn't know what my job was. Like, he didn't know what an archaeologist was. And I was like, you're like one of the people running the government, and I mean, there are little kids who know what I do. They don't think I should be doing it because I'm a girl, and that's a whole different it's a whole different thing. But it's really like, we take so many classes and we read so many things and we do so many projects, and we forget, at least I forget, that I make an assumption that people are more familiar with what I'm trying to do or what my job is. And I don't speak up about that enough. And I think that's one of the big challenges, is that it's really on me to make sure that people understand what I'm doing. It's not just testing soil.
That's a very good point. No, you're absolutely right. I remember when I was also working at the Fiji Museum, Erica, many years ago, that came as a surprise as well, that, we are both in a male-dominated field. There was an expectation that for us as girls or women, that there are other jobs that we should be doing rather than, doing the work that they think was more for our male counterpart. How did you counter that in terms of people looking at you as a wahine, as a woman working in a male-dominated field like archaeology, Erica?
Well, I'm Gen X, so I was just like, you just have to get over it. This is what I'm trained to do. Nobody else on the island is here to do it. If you don't want me, you can call someone from Hawaii. I mean, that's one of the nice things is that because I'm the only person who really does what I do, in being in the private sector, I just kind of say, you don't have to use me, but I'm driving from my house every day. I'm not living in the hotel. I didn't have to fly down on an airplane. So that's up to you because you're going to cover all those costs for whoever that person is. Um, oh, like other than that, I've never had any issues with anybody on any of the sites. Um, Yeah, I think they think it's odd. I'm out in a safety vest and a hard hat. But we have more women in the field now. Like we have engineers, we have women engineers coming in. So now I used to be like the only female on a project. But now, there's actually a Fijian engineer who's here. And so she was on my last road project. And, there are more women coming into the field. So now it's more commonplace. But I've never had anyone give me any trouble. They just let me do my thing. I think half the time they're kind of scared because I'm trying to make sure that we're not, bulldozing through people and that, this has to be taken into consideration. The guys, and they're good about like, if they hit someone, they let us know, and I'll go out there and they're like, aren't you scared? I'm like, I'm not the person who disturbed this person. You are. You can be scared. I'm just trying to help them, get back to rest. So there's that. I think, part of that is like, well, if I'm there, then they're not going to have to deal with it. So they've been very, very, very supportive.
Excellent. Oh, that's so good to hear, um, Erica. And, I'm sure there will be some young girls listening to this Talanoa session, and some of them will be listening to our YouTube video, a few days or few years down the line. There is something really, uplifting, and very empowering. And thank you for those words that you've just shared in terms of your work in the field of archaeology. I have one of my students here who's in the audience, Erica, and he has some questions that he would like to ask you. Would you like to unmute and ask a question? And he's already typed some as well in the chat. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I have a quick question. Oh, a couple of questions. I apologize. The first one is, I know you had brought up already some of the issues already plaguing American Samoa. I just wanted to know, culturally, do you feel like there has been a shift because of after colonization? Um, and is there a pressure to find fossils and or anything that's preserved like artifacts for funding or the culture? Do you feel like you have a pressure to do that to bring to light and show maybe government agencies that hey, we do need this funding, this is important because there is a rich history here. And then you said it was hard to find those in the tropics. Do you feel like that's something that is a pressure on you specifically or for the culture itself?
Thank you, Erica.
No. Short answer would be no. Actually, so our physical record with the dates that we have off of some of the earliest sites goes back 3,000 years. Samoan culture already states that we've just been here. We've just been here in the entire, there's no question about that. People make a little bit of fun sometimes, not locally, but when things are found, they're like, oh yeah, well, we already knew that from our oral history or that kind of thing. So the culture I find to be very strong here. And so it's where things kind of fit in. Like one of the archaeologists who works here, when he would talk about things that he found, he'd say, oh, so it was something I think it dated about 1,000 years ago. And he's like, this would have been about the time of Moses. So what he would do is he would put it into kind of biblical terms because it's very Christian society here. And that, I mean, that's how he put it in the newspaper article. So I think that helped people kind of tie back to it. With climate change, it's just hard. So a lot of our earliest deposits would have been on the beaches. We also built up this island all around the coast. I just did a project for Port to prove that I don't need to monitor their dock that has been in place since 1900, because when those guys did it, when the Navy put it in, they dug down to rock. They said, "Oh, we dug down 2 feet to bare rock," and then they filled it back in. Luckily, the archives had all these photos of the construction, so that was great. But no, I mean, people just kind of accept it and kind of don't think about it. It just kind of blends in. So no, there isn't really a specific push on finding things. Also, overall in cultural resource management, especially from National Park Service and the bigger agencies, that there's been more of a shift towards trying to leave things in place. It's not really sustainable for us to pull everything out. For us here, we're really I mean, it's sad that organic stuff doesn't last, but at the same time, because we're pulling out rocks and coral and shell, these are much easier for us to preserve, and store, than, let's say, a piece of bark cloth or, any kind of plant remains. Let me remember where I was going with that. But generally, yeah, the idea is, if we don't have to move someone or something, document that it's there, make sure we get coordinates on it, put it in the database, and then leave it alone. We only move people if we absolutely have to. And generally that tends to only be when we're putting in sewer lines, because they're a gravity feed line and they have to go at a very specific angle and stay straight. Because obviously we don't want that backing up. But yeah, so
Do you feel
sorry.
like putting no, you're fine. Do you feel like uh the the method, not the method, but the culture of needing to leave things in place has been drawn back by maybe the failing infrastructure and needing to build upwards? Like, has there been like a slow mobility to want to innovate things or renovate things because the culture is like, hey, we do need to leave things in place and certain things cannot be touched?
Um, so American Samoa is a territory and kind of falls outside of it's. So to be very specific, I only look at federally funded construction projects. If you decide you're going to put a house in on your land and you need to put a septic tank in, that is then up to you to decide how you're going to handle what may occur in your archaeological record. We don't actually have any local laws for archaeology. So I have talked to some of our legislators about that, and they're kind of the, well, why would we want more rules kind of thing. So it's always been the all of the archaeology has either been academically financed or it's financed by the federal government. So so the archaeology is getting covered, so there's not a problem with building.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. And then, oh, sorry, I know I have a bunch of questions. I'm almost done, I promise. The
I'm not
my
in
next my next question was for the culture. Do you feel like with younger generations, especially now with like the fusion of technology and just like a whole new global mini culture, do you feel like many younger people are drawn to wanting to be in maybe higher positions as like chiefs later on in their life, or do you feel like there's a pullback? Like, are younger generations going to be taking the role later on? Do you feel like that might be a thing, or do you feel like that's difficult at the moment with changes happening?
It's hard to say because it really comes down to, I can speak on my generation. Like, I did not expect to end up with a title. And the way I've been raised is that having a title is a real responsibility, because then you got to take care of people. Like, I work for myself. I don't have any employees because I don't want to be responsible. Like, if we suddenly have no projects, that I can't pay my employee. So in the same sense, like, taking on title, I feel like I have this responsibility to my family. Am I ready for it? My family said yes because they gave me the title. Other people say, okay, it's my time. And there are people who actively seek their titles as well. It really depends on the people. I think it really depends on the personalities and what kind of role of leadership that they want to take. And do they want to take a role of leadership and responsibility, or do they just want to be in charge of other people? So, so with younger kids, they're still I mean, the way the village works is that little boys are out on the road at sunset, minding the curfew. Like they're out there making sure everybody's following curfew. We take a 15-minute curfew. Everybody sits still and prays or reflects on the day, kind of thing. And these kids are going to Aonga, Samoa. They're going to Samoan school in the summertime with the church. And so the kids who are here are just fully in the culture. And then when it's their time, their families will figure out who's going to move on and who's going to take leadership and who's not. I don't know if that
Oh
answers
wow.
your question.
No, that completely answers it. And actually it brings up another question. So family plays a huge role in kind of, I don't want to say policing maybe your social actions, but there's maybe a heavy hand on the path that you should take, especially in American Samoa, right? Like if they're
Yes.
like, hey, I want
Yeah.
you to take on a response, if they say, I need you to take on more responsibility because I know you can handle it, they will place that on you. And there's kind of a, not to say a no say, because I'm sure you have some power, but I'm saying like they definitely give the weight on your shoulders regardless of whether you ask for it or not.
Yeah, that can be the case. You may not be the oldest child in your family, but the one that gets tagged, or the youngest
Oh, I
one.
see.
Generally the youngest child will stay behind to take care of the parents when they're older. That's the tends to be the social norm. But different families, different children will take on those roles and responsibilities. Yeah, basically, if you get tagged, you're just going to do it because you've been raised that's kind of your duty to your family. Just like what you're doing at church, or what your family's doing in terms of village activities and coming together for those cultural events. Like, I don't know how you get 40 guys to all decide that they're going to quit smoking and drinking for 2 months and get up at 4 a.m. every day to run up the mountain so that they can get ready for the Fautasi race. But they do it because of village pride. And their families are like, you're in the age range. You need to do this. So I think this is why
Oh,
we
wow.
only have that race once a year, because it's a very big undertaking. But yeah, I mean, you just kind of step up to it. So one of the things that I just want to point out, like, we don't have a lot of people finding people to volunteer is really hard here. And people are like, well, I don't understand why people won't volunteer. People from the States come down. Well, but why won't people volunteer? It's like, because they've got a job, or they've got kids, or they're going to school, and then they have their family responsibilities, their church responsibilities, and their village responsibilities. And all of those things are going to take priority to whatever they're volunteering for. So like finding swim instructors and lifeguards gets a little difficult because it's outside, like, until we build it into, like the village culture, like this is something all the youth groups need to come out and do. Until we get it to that point, it's on the outside, and it's always going to be prioritized much lower than those three things.
Oh, wow. So is there I promise two more questions and I'm done. I'm completely done. This is I'm doing a summary on a paper actually, and I apologize for asking so many questions. I'm typing away as we're speaking. My last two questions though um was about I guess the denomination of American Samoa. I noticed you said there's a like a strong Christian denomination. Does that conflict with any other cultural religions that you guys possibly have, like polytheism versus Christianity? Like I'm new. I have no idea. Like I'm coming into this as like someone who does know nothing. Absolutely nothing. Is there like a clash between the two, or did they fuse together? Was it, something that's more dominant? Like, do people want to be in a Christian functioning society, or do they fuse together?
This place is Christian. It's just
Yeah, okay.
Christian. So
Oh, for sure.
London missionaries came in, the Catholic missionaries came in, Mormon missionaries are always coming in. So we have, yeah, I mean, we have a few, we have a bigger Baha'i uh group here than I thought we did, but we have Baha'i here. I knew one Muslim family. They're not here anymore, but they were here for a little while. But yeah, everybody's pretty much Christian.
Nice.
And
Nice.
so, I mean,
And
the story being that when Christianity came in, that it was welcomed by Samoa because there was a legend about Nafanua, the woman warrior, who said this change will be coming across the ocean. And I don't know if I should be telling that story since I don't actually, like I'm telling it to you, but it's one of those like I'm going to tell it to you in this version, and that might not be quite the same version that others tell. So, but yeah,
yeah.
that it was
Oh,
there. We don't have a lot. I mean, there's not a lot of writing. People came to Samoa late. Um, the Dutch saw this place like in the 1500s, and then La Perouse touched down in the 1700s, and promptly there was a skirmish, and we have a place called Massacre Bay on the other side of the island. And that's where the French came in. And then people were just like, don't stop there, don't go there. And so it wasn't until like the mid 1800s when a London Missionary Society, a missionary came, and that was when the Christianity came in. So,
nice. All right. And my very last question was, what was the nonprofit you had started so I could research it, put it in the paper in my paper.
oh, I'm still in the process. Like I have the articles of incorporation. I'm working on my bylaws and my officers right now, and just got my EIN, and so hopefully we'll have my 501c3, in the next few months. So it's like super new. Like I was very
Oh, okay.
frustrated in November. And so, and then, but I was also traveling. So the process has been a little slower. So I just have this plan, and I'm incorporated. So I say I have a nonprofit, but I still have to do all the 501c3. I have to still do all the rest of the 501c3 stuff. So I don't even have a social media presence. That I was actually going to try to start an IG account like after this, after this, after this activity today.
Oh,
So,
perfect. Thank you for letting me ask you the questions. I hope I didn't take too much of your time, Professor. Thank you.
This is amazing. And you know what? This is why we're having this webinar. I'm just so glad that you're able to be here, and we give you the opportunity, to interact directly with our guests. And what a way that even for those of us who are listening online and those who are in the Zoom room, they have learned so much about American Samoa through your questions. Thank you so much again for joining us today. Wow, there you go, Erica. And thank you for taking us on this wonderful journey to the beautiful island of Tutuila. So, Erica, to wrap up our Talanoa today, I will pass it back to you if you have any last comments or anything else that you wanted to share with our audience. Thank you, Erica.
oh, I don't know. I said so much. I guess it's just a matter of finding your space in your community, whether like I said before, I wasn't expecting to be here this long and do all of what I'm doing now, but there was a call. There was just a call to it, and so here I am, and just trying to find a way to not have to stand on the road in 115-degree weather anymore because I'm getting old. But thank you everyone for your time.
Oh,
I
thank you so
appreciate
much.
you signing in.
Thank you so much, Erica. It was so beautiful. Elinda, Helena, and Beth, I was looking for a picture for Erica's poster, and I found a very pretty picture, a very model like picture of that goes back to 1991, Erica? And
Yep.
yeah, so she gave me a whole life story based on that photo. So Erica, you've done so much in your beautiful years that you have lived on this earth, and we know that you still have so much to offer. And I have to say that American Samoa, they're so lucky to have you. So thank you, Erica, from all of us, just for your dedication of hanging in there in your island and helping your people. Elinda, I can see Elinda wanting to say something, and then I will go to Helena if you want to say a few words to Helena. So Elinda is on the phone. Hold on, Elinda, Helena. Aloha, Helena.
Aloha. Just happy to hear more. Glad to reconnect and to learn more about Erica's life story, which sounds like mine. It's interesting how archaeology takes you to different places in the cultural sector. So yeah, just good to reconnect. Hope all is well amidst changing and somewhat tumultuous times, working so closely with government. But yeah, hoping to see more in the future.
Thank you so much, Helena. No, absolutely true, Helena. With this, tumultuous time, that we're going through right now, and I was sharing with my colleagues here at Calstate LA that we need these webinars more, so much more, right? Going back to the COVID-19 times in 2020, and it's just like we're going through, another, turmoil, and again the more we reconnect, the more we empower each other, the better it is for everyone. So, Erica, you did just that for us. So, thank you for that. Linda, thank you,
Hi,
Helena, for
hi,
your
hi,
comment.
Dr. Teresi. Hi, Erica and Dr. Helena and everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. And Erica, thank you for sharing, the work that the great work that you do in American Samoa. And, I know I hear you when you say not everyone understands the work we do. But the important thing about this Talanoa is that you get to be heard and share the important things that you do for American Samoa. And I'm not from there, but I truly value, your skills and your leadership that you've invested in your people there. And we need more people like you. We need more people like you in your capacity who cares much for our land, for our people. And sometimes often overlooked, that we have, valued resources to offer, but then people who don't really care or don't not really care but don't really see the need at the moment really don't give you the opportunity. But thank you so much for not giving up and for putting in a lot of good work and effort into doing your work in American Samoa. Can't wait to see you here in the NMI. Hopefully you come one of these days to visit us and help us in our museum and share your expertise with our local people. We'd be happy to have you here. Dr. T, it's awesome seeing you always every week, and thank you for putting this together. It's always great to see everyone in our NHP Mi Familia Ohana. I'm so excited to see Dr. Helena, and thank you again for just bringing us together in our vast Pacific Ocean, bringing us together in this Zoom meeting, and just seeing everybody really just brightens up my day. Much needed relief on a weekly basis. So thank you again. Sizu Usmasi.
Vinakamakalevu, mahalo nui, Linda, for those beautiful words. And from me here, I know Beth is listening in. Thank you, Beth, for your support. I know you can wave from there. I know you're in the same room. Hey, Beth. Hey.
Yeah, we have one speaker that's on listening to everybody, but there's quite a few of us in this room listening to you, Erica. So majority of the team are listening in. So thank you again.
All right. Thank you so much, Linda and team. We love you. And thank you so much for listening in. Thank you, Erica, for being such a wonderful guest today and sharing from the heart. And I think that was so powerful. And definitely, you're welcome to visit there. The Saipan team are waiting for you. And I'm sure Helena is waiting for you in Hilo when you come back to Hawaii. And of course, you're welcome here in Los Angeles anytime you're flying through to Washington, D.C. All right. So from me to all of you, mahalo nui, and you all take care. Bye. Thank you. See you, Helena. Thank you. Thank you, Erika. Wow, what a wonderful session. Yeah, it was needed. Yeah, Erika, we need it.
Yeah. I mean, I needed it just like I needed it when we were doing our Napimi one because I need to talk to other people every once in a while, like Erlinda said. Just gotta, you shoulder a lot. You just sometimes gotta
Yes,
share the load. At least
absolutely.
verbally.
And you did, you've got support from Hawaii, you've got support from Saipan, and you've got support from us here in Los Angeles. So all the best, and you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you. Have a
Uh,
good evening.
You too. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Wow. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. A beautiful, beautiful sharing from Erica, all the way from Pango Pango in American Samoa. And for those of you who joined us late, shared a very beautiful song from American Samoa, and I hope that you will enjoy it. I will play it one more time to close our session today, and thanking Erica for sharing her beautiful story from the beautiful America Samoa. Fafitai Telela.
Awane ino se tasi ilo tau lea lea.
Ia fai oe mawhao au. Ie ufatua tua.
Ile upo,
Mali a miu.
male alofa,
Male loto.
Male whaatuatua.
Mali le nao ia.
These are all decoration. We can make them and then sum it up. But I'll take more.
Ua matango fiele aso muaia muao Sauni maila pati malepo tupulanga Samoa mai afia fia Efa ava Samoa ile atua Olo fasi no mangalena Samoa elo ua tunu upele Pea ilo wanganga Tupulanga Samoa Maia fia mole au mai moa Amane de la usiva mafali o winga tausa fia Se maia la ia tene Samoa taulele ai Ia negoa Samoa, mita ile vasa lolo.
And they did a good job. We made a big cut, and then it's all the
Tama matine Samoa, ia e mana tua. Malu e mafita o ainga, ai mise o matua. Aua o soulu mana I manuia, e mawai o ele fia. Ia tu mawile tu mafina wi melele. E sili le amo I tamua Tupulanga Samoa O mai ai fia mole au mai moa Whaamane ene e lausi Mama whaali o winga tausa a fia se e mayala ia teine sa mota ulele ai ulia ne loa e a ule Samoa o te mita mita i le vasa loloa tupulanga Samoa mai ai fa fia fia mole au mai moa fa amane Siva mafali o winga tau safia se mayala ia teine sa bota ulele ai ulia ne loa e ule Samoa o te mita mita i le vasa loloa e Samoa o te mita mita i le vasa loloa.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful song from Samoa, American Samoa. Saying goodbye to all of you now and wishing you all the very best today. Thank you so much for joining me and Erika for sharing her beautiful story with all of us. On that beautiful song that we've just listened to, Tupulanga Samoa, I hope that we will enjoy and be inspired by that beautiful song from the islands of America Samoa. I'm bidding you goodbye now. Fafatai Telelava, Tofa Soifua. Thank you, Reggie. Thank you, Linda. Goodbye for now, everybody. Bye.